This is obviously very clear-cut malicious corruption, because that judge admitted that he knew what he had done was wrong and illegal, and that he didn't have any legal authority to do it. And yet, when I asked him kindly to correct his error, he maliciously laughed at me and then told me he wasn't going to do that. So he knew, he believed, and the police believed, that I was going to have no way to drive, because he thought, and I told him, I didn't let him know I had my car. I said, I need you to correct this so I can get my car back, because they're telling me that I have to have this lifted so that they'll return my keys and my license to me. And he refused to do it. So he basically knew that if he refused to do this, that I was going to be trapped in the state of Washington. I mean, somehow he assumed I had gotten into Washington. But how was I going to go to college, and how was I going to attend to my lawsuits at all? So that was very shocking to me. I was absolutely stunned that this judge was flagrantly disregarding the law. I really couldn't believe it. But he wasn't the first judge to do that. Judge Lipscomb was the first, because his courthouse was hiding these documents from the public to begin with, and they refused to file them in the federal bankruptcy court as they were required to do. So his clerks were withholding evidence, and that was illegal. The next judge to do something illegal was Judge Gerald Warren, who probably knew Judge Paul Lipscomb. And I know that Judge Gerald Warren did know John Camp, and John Camp knew Paul Lipscomb, because they had to deal with clergy abuse claims in Marion County as well as in Multnomah County. So the next thing that I did is I just thought, I cannot believe this judge. I was really desperate at that point. I had to make a bunch of other phone calls, and then someone said to me, I don't remember who told me this, but they said, try the DMV. And I said, why? I just called them, and the DMV both said that I wasn't suspended. They said, well, go to the DMV, because they can give you proof that you are not legally suspended. Even if the judge is saying that you are, they can give you a document to show that you're not, that your license is not suspended. So I went to the DMV. They did give me that documentation, and I faxed it over to the Coburg Police. However, I don't believe that they ever did return my license and my keys to me. And because even though I was proving that my license was not suspended, and I believe I got it somehow lifted from my record because of being able to prove this with the DMV, because I took the information from the DMV and then I went to the police, I think in Wenatchee, and I had things fixed. However, because this judge had been the one to issue the suspension of my license, and then because he said he wasn't going to fix or correct it, I then knew that I couldn't drive. I was too intimidated and reasonably afraid that if I left the state of Washington again to go to Oregon, to go to my classes, the minute I was in Oregon, Judge Warren was going to tell police that I was still suspended and he never fixed it. So what were they going to do? Tow my car a second time and then take my license and my keys again and leave me stranded again in Oregon? So I had my travel options were totally blocked by the fact that there was this judge waiting to do all these weird favors, and there was law enforcement that was going to go along with him. So I had no reasonable way to continue to commute between Washington and Oregon. And because of that, I had to withdraw from my classes at PSU, and I was blocked from going to school, from college, and from my lawsuits. And I tried to buy time for it. I thought, well, I'll have to withdraw right now, but if I can get this situation corrected, then I can go back and I can continue with those. But then as soon as I was stuck in Washington State, the military began to escalate the number of migraines they were triggering against me, I believe to keep me down and from doing anything. And at the same time, during that time that they were triggering these migraines against me, I had, during the time that they were assaulting me, the legislation for this idea of being able to suspend a license because of unpaid tickets, they had it renewed, they reviewed, and they then passed the law legally. So when they passed it, and when it was then a law, they then tried to backtrack and say that, well, now my license was suspended lawfully because I wasn't paying anything towards my tickets. And then at that point later, several months after they did this unlawfully to me, then they had legal cause to suspend my license. So they suspended it because of unpaid tickets, and I had no way to pay my tickets because they had forced me out of college and out of my financial aid, and I then had no money. I had no income. I had no alternative income, and the police and this judge and the FBI, they all knew that the only way that I would be able to pay for the amount of tickets that I had, which were accruing because of police harassment, because of the strategy that they had thought of long ago, the only way that I could pay for this and then be reinstated so that I could drive to my lawsuits and to college would be through the financial aid money that I received from PSU. And PSU then told me that since I had withdrawn from college, they weren't going to allow me to go to college the next term. So all of a sudden then I was blocked from going to college. And they said and since I was blocked from going back to PSU, I had no way to get financial aid, which meant I had no way to pay for my license to be suspended, and I was effectively then illegally blocked from attending to my lawsuits, from going to college, and I was forced to be in the state of Washington. And so far, I have made 2 different complaints to the Washington Judicial Commission in Washington State, and they have said that Judge Warren has done nothing illegal. We've got a really big problem here. Okay, big problemo. Big. Because if the Washington Judicial Commission continues to pull this kind of a cop-out attitude, then they're going to be in trouble, and they're going to be investigated next for collusion to commit crimes and to encourage and allow crimes by judges. Because you don't withhold evidence and conceal crimes and refuse to deal with judicial crimes when somebody goes to you and tells you what's happening. And I both times asked the Washington Judicial Commission if they wanted me to forward to them some paperwork and documentation that proved what I was saying was true, and each time they said, oh, no, they could do this, and they didn't need that. They did believe me, and they would look into it. So I figured, they might contact the FBI or get a hold of these records on their own. They might have channels that I'm sure that they can access things. And yet they come back to me with this response of a written response that they have decided the judge did nothing illegal. Okay, then if that's not illegal, to maliciously put a suspension on someone's license and then to maliciously refuse to remove it when they know it was illegal and it wasn't correct, if that's not illegal, then what is? Because so far these judges are acting like a judicial mafia, and most likely because they don't like the fact that I filed a lawsuit against judges in Portland, Oregon for anti-competition and monopoly. So then all of them decide to act like a monopoly? My license was suspended illegally by a judge after I filed a lawsuit against judges and had 2 other lawsuits pending. So I really expect that when the FBI is supposed to investigate public corruption, they're not part of that public corruption. They're investigating judges for public corruption.